I have been going through a lot of newspapers these days,
Mhm.
and what I'm noticing in that is many banks are going through a lot of NPA challenges in our
Correct.
country. A lot of frauds are being unearthed. So one thing which is also creating a concern, that is when a particular bank or an NBFC is lending against any property, or maybe for that matter it would be house property or a land, etc. I think there are a number of issues and frauds which are coming up where the borrowers have offered that particular property as a collateral, and again they are taking loan on the same property from some different banks. And one major challenge which we are seeing is these banks, when they are actually getting into the liquidation process or a recovery process of that property, uh, suddenly they find that there is someone else also which have a right to claim because they have also lent on that same property.
Very true.
So this is definitely a large problem, really spread out across our country. And the work which your organization is doing, Exigro, and also News for Use, that what we have learned from you is that you're creating an information system and a structure for a banking company or an NBFC who would lend primarily based on property, to identify that whether there are any similar issues with that kind of a property much before lending.
True.
And with this, of course, it would be very easy for a bank to go to a technology platform, search for a particular property, defining all the necessary details, and then check whether there has been any existing loan or any existing maybe any other encumbrance as well. I think this will greatly help all the banks to mitigate their risk at much early stage. And thanks to you, I mean, you are doing really commendable job.
Thank you.
And I have got inputs from some of your clients as well. They are as well finding it right very great. And we have been speaking to number of heads of fraud risk management with some of the banks and vigilance functions also. They are also very happy to see the kind of solution which your company is offering. So, would you like to share some more insight about
Right.
the
So
work which
if
you are
we,
doing? Yeah.
yeah. So I think you've asked a very comprehensive question, and but for that we'll have to step back a bit.
Mhm.
In India, there are two issues. I mean, it is well known that the legal the judicial process in India is very slow.
Mhm.
Plus, we, because of our inheriting certain English
Mhm.
way of judiciary,
Mhm.
there are certain issues. For example, in India, you have ownership
Mhm.
right, which is separate from your possession right,
Yes. Yeah.
and then there is a beneficial interest.
Oh, that.
So there are three things which I mean people can have an interest in a property.
Mhm.
Now, if you look at it from a lender's perspective, what really happens is that uh, a banker, when he's extending a loan for a business purpose or for buying a housing property or for any other purposes, but is taking a collateral security as real estate,
Yes.
then they are exposed to all the risks that are attached to the way the property rights are managed in the country.
Yes.
And the complexities are very many. As you would recall, that India prior to 1947 was a collection of small princely states, each having their own legal system.
Yes. Yes.
So when they were all migrated to the local things, and this being a state subject, there are a variety of practices followed across various states.
Right.
Now, if we focus on Gujarat, which is where we are currently focused on,
Yes.
even within Gujarat, there are a number of disparities in various means. What has happened is we have a lot of laws that should protect the property owner or anybody who has an interest in the property.
Yes.
However, while the laws are there, to get them implemented is a very long and arduous task.
Yes.
And therefore, prevention is better than cure,
Yes.
especially in case of property rights
rights.
in India. So when a lender is lending, they would normally do a due diligence. They will take a CIBIL report.
Yes.
They will take a title search, which is done in the collector's office or a sub-registrar's office. They would do a title clearance certificate. So a lawyer will study the documents, the entire file of that property, to make sure that everything is as per legal and as per the norms. Then they would do a physical visit. They would do credit evaluation. they would actually also go to a place called Cersei, which is
Yes.
a common online database where all banks are supposed to put their equitable mortgages.
Okay. Oh.
Unfortunately, despite having so many different ways, it is still not foolproof.
Oh.
And part of that not being foolproof, the root cause could be inadequate implementation of existing laws and the complexities and lack of awareness.
Oh. Okay.
So, what we do, which is primarily we digitize information available in public domain, which is public notices that are published in newspapers,
Yeah.
and consolidate them and make them into a database,
Yes.
which is online and can be searched by anyone from any internet connected device.
Wow. That's great.
And as a result, what happens is that when a bank is so this, if I go back to the language of my being an auditor
Yes,
in my
yes,
earlier
sure,
avatar,
sure, definitely.
so there is something called a preventive control, and then there is something called a detective control.
Yes.
So a preventive control from banks or a lender's perspective would be to not lend or not accept a collateral where title is not clear.
Oh. Okay.
Therefore, so as we go forward, the number of years data that keeps on increasing, this will supplement those kind of information which normally is not even found in the sub-registrar's records.
Oh.
Now, when you do a title search, the sub-registrar's record is currently the most reliable way.
Yes. Yeah.
However, while it is the most reliable, it is not foolproof.
Yes.
So there are various challenges within that. I would not go into each of them.
Yes.
But that is one thing.
Right.
The second is interest of people who cannot be, I mean, whose part of ownership cannot be recorded in the government
Yes.
records.
Yeah. Correct.
So, for example, an estranged wife and child or something like that.
Right. Right.
So, those people enforce their right
Yes.
or declare that right through the means of a public notice.
Yes. So whenever a transaction would happen, bank would or anyone would.
So
send
if
a
they
notice.
want to say that we have a right and our right is not recorded anywhere,
Right.
their only way of doing it is by means of a public notice. And therefore, I mean, if we step back and think about it, although most people I know, I would go to the extent of saying 99% of the people I know would not be looking at public notice on a regular basis.
Yes. Yeah.
However, if they continue to be printed day after day in so many numbers, they are doing a useful
Definitely.
purpose.
Definitely.
And so what we do is basically allow banks to access it before they lend against a property.
Yes.
But not only that, more importantly, we keep an eye out for the properties in which they have a security interest.
Correct.
And notify them in case a property which has a security interest of that lender has a public notice published for it, relevant to it,
Right.
and the bank is not likely to be aware.
Oh. So like the information which is otherwise, I think, cannot be accessed through any manual method, and it would really take someone for a long time. So your company would offer it as a digitized format.
Right.
And immediate two benefits which I'm seeing is that pre-lending, of course, wherever the proposal which comes to bank, they can look at the status of the property and what all has happened till now as far as the public notices are concerned.
Right. So in this case, I would want to put a disclaimer in the sense that we have been now in operations for almost 3 years.
Wow.
And so those 3 years data we have for the location that we are covering.
Right.
And so yes, if there is any transaction which is unreported and could be of concern in the immediate past, a lender would be able to know.
Wow.
But more than that, once they have lent against a property, they have incurred the risk. Now, if anybody tries to defraud them and the buyer gives a public notice, we will be able to.
Oh, wow, that's great.
So, the Cersei was supposed to do this work in a certain way.
Yes.
But unfortunately, from what I have gathered from various bankers that I have met over my over the last few years, is that they are facing challenges in terms of relying on Cersei for this information.
And I think off late we have been talking to like number of NBFCs into the specifically the housing and the residential, or maybe I classify into the real estate segment.
True.
And we have asked them questions that when you are lending against any property, what is the assurance do you have, or what controls do you have, that someone else does not have any interest? And the answers which we are getting right from the senior management also is that there is absolutely no preventive control as on date. The fraud monitoring team would get into action only after they come or identify any some indicator or something goes wrong. And just off late, I was also talking to one of the valuer, one of the very renowned valuer, and what he highlighted is that when the particular loan goes as an NPA, and when the bank would start a recovery process, at that time the valuation drops drastically,
Right.
and banks are not able to recover the full
Full
amount
amount.
because of, first of all, any other lender would have a claim, and then all the claimants of that particular land or a property, that information was never existent into any of the records. So I think that's a tremendous effort
Right.
which your organization has put into digitize this all information.
Thank
And I think one challenge which I think you have overcome already is that this all information is not available in plain English.
True.
It's available in like vernacular language.
True.
And
Mostly, yes.
to decipher that and capture that and convert that into any normal person who understand English to look at that, I think that would take a tremendous amount of effort.
So actually, you've hit upon a very interesting point.
Yeah.
If you take an example of, say, Bank of Baroda in
Mhm.
Gujarat,
Yes.
it is one of the largest lenders in this region.
Yes.
However, a significant part, it being a national bank, a
Yes.
significant part of its staff members
Mhm.
are not necessarily Gujarati and therefore not
Yeah.
necessarily conversant with
Correct,
Gujarati.
correct.
Now, in Gujarat, you would have most public notices appearing in the vernacular, in the language newspapers.
Yes.
And therefore, even if they wanted to,
Right.
they would find it very difficult.
Yes.
The other challenge is that as per, if there were certain specified newspapers
Hmm.
in which these public notices should have been published,
Right.
then it would become very easy.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, or I mean, that's how the legal system
Yes,
works.
yes.
They have specified that it should be in one of the leading
Newspapers. Yeah.
However, there is no definition available as to what
Yeah.
will be considered as a
Right,
leading
right,
newspaper.
right.
So one of the things that we have focused on
Hmm.
is that we cast our net as wide as possible.
Yes.
So for a city like Ahmedabad,
Yes.
where most people will get 2 or 3 maybe newspapers in their home every day,
Right.
we cover almost 30 newspapers on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
Yeah, and I was before like interacting with you, I was not knowing at all whether so many newspapers are actually in circulation.
True.
And such amount of information is available and that one can look at. Of course, manually it is not at all possible, and I don't think that can ever be done. And I think there comes the immensity of the
But
contribution.
I would like to change that a bit.
Hmm.
We have done it,
Hmm.
but for that to be replicated
Hmm.
at every organization that can
Yes.
use this information
Yes.
may not be feasible, may not be
Yes.
even desirable.
Even desirable, definitely.
Because from an economic perspective, there is a lot of duplication of work that need not
Yes,
happen.
yes.
Right?
So here, here I think one of a globally recognized thing. So we're doing some work for one of the insurance company, and in their balance sheet, I found they have something which is called as title plants, and that is the basic information about that particular property being captured since maybe last 100-150 years. And I asked a question that why this property or why this asset does not depreciate. It says because as we go back in time, the value of this information is much more. So I think, I mean, 3 years or more of information to create that, that is not possible at all. And I think that way you are able to create a tremendous value for anyone who is looking at lending to the housing sector. And with the emergence of a lot of smaller NBFCs and banks focusing on lending against property, affordable housing, even government's initiative, I think there is a great opportunity.
So I would like to share one perspective here actually, is that most lenders, whether it is banks, NBFCs, would consider risk management to be a cost driver. It's a cost.
Yes.
However, if we look at it from this perspective, that the number of new license holders
Yes.
from the National Housing Bank
Right.
who are coming up in the housing finance sector, when they are entering into a market, in order for them to gain market share,
Yes.
they would have to accept files that the established players either do not want
Yes. Yeah.
or
Right.
and which therefore we can assume to be inherently more risky.
More risky. Yeah. Correct. Yes.
If a housing finance company is looking to enter, say, Gujarat,
Yes.
and avails my service, they will be able to have their say delinquency levels
Yes.
like the established players.
Yes. Yeah. Correct.
Whereas they would be able to give with more confidence,
Right.
and therefore gain market share.
Yes. Yes.
So it can also be a competitive tool, a USP,
Definitely.
for a new entrant,
New entrant.
where the cost of getting into a new market
Yes.
is reduced through a large extent.
Definitely. And I think the new entrant would have to definitely offer reasonable rates compared to large or established players. So only differentiator, I think what you're saying is right, is the risk management system, that to reach to a level of robustness. And with your background, I think with working with so many consulting firms and risk advisory firms across the globe, I think that brings in a tremendous value to the solution what you are providing to the companies.
So
you
let's
want to highlight something on
yes,
that area?
actually,
Yes.
it is now that you mention it, one, it is almost like it was destined to be like this.
Yeah.
So when I began my career, I was running a factory in Surat, and I did my law, a 3-year law degree,
Yes.
just
Oh.
because I wanted to accompany a friend.
Yes.
And that gave me some sort of a background on, or gave me an ability to read legal documents and make sense of it.
Great.
Post that, I worked for the big four firms, and where I was a process and a risk consultant,
Yes.
a business process and a business risk consultant.
Yeah.
And therefore, I got the ability of designing a process,
Yes.
designing a controls,
Yes.
identifying risk, and devising controls both on the preventive and the detective side. Also, during my time when I was working with IPCL and Reliance, I got introduced to technology by default. I mean, not by design, but by default.
Default, yeah.
And therefore, I gained some bit of understanding on how technology works and how it can be leveraged to do things which were earlier considered to be either too tedious or almost impossible.
Yes. Yes.
And therefore, over the last 3 years, we're now doing 100 newspapers every day across 11 cities. Soon we should be across Gujarat. And we have a stable in-house built business application.
Yes.
With more than 50 different type of controls, preventive and detective.
Yes,
because
yes,
one of the things that this information needs to be is that it has to be relevant, timely, and reliable.
Right. Right. Yes.
So concepts like maker checker
Correct.
have been implemented in my operations.
Yes.
So that the chances of our making mistake is minimized, or the way the database is structured,
Yes.
or how we look at using new technology. So one of the things that we're very excited about is using deep learning and deep technologies, where machine learning, artificial intelligence, neuro-linguistic programming, all of that will be able to take a lot of drudgery out of our work also.
Wow.
And so we are seeing a lot of, is looking at the future with a lot of enthusiasm.
Wow, that's great. And I think one thing which I'm noticing is that for any entity, I mean, the kind of experience which you are carrying as a promoter of this organization, for any entity or a team to reach that scale and maybe level of expertise and that eye for detail is just not possible by just going through any program or any training, or that would require tremendous amount of experience. And so your solution would be definitely of that quality and dependable.
One of the things that I would also, I mean, so it just so happens that we have done transactions on the buy side and the sell side of real estate, where I have been personally involved, almost a dozen transactions.
Wow.
Starting from commercial property to a retail asset to agricultural land.
Wow.
And so yes, all of them together gives me a lot of confidence that I will be able to give service to lenders who are demanding customers
Yes.
to the level that they would
Yes.
be satisfied with.
Right. So I think, friends, here there is a clear message for the companies who are lending on to the real estate side, that definitely risk management is increasingly becoming more and more important, and we are seeing large defaults, large level of NPS across different areas, and our government's focus is also on increasing the affordable housing, availability of house for all, and there are a lot of opportunities which are coming up into this particular segment. But then one caution is that how and the process through which an entity will be able to manage the risk. So Mr. Pranav Kapadia is definitely contributing to development of a robust risk management framework on by providing the solution. So I'll ask just another question to Pranav, and later on, of course, he'll share something more about his entity, and he will also take you through some of his solutions. So Pranav, just like our country is of course massive, and as of now, of course, your organization has reached a particular stage and a scale. So would you like to share some success stories without naming any of your clients or something,
Right.
which would be very helpful for our viewers?
So, what we have been able to do is that we have been able to identify almost 50 instances
50
in the,
instances.
in the last, say, 6 months,
Wow.
where the loan amount at risk is upwards of 500 CR.
Oh, wow.
And the victims are not only NBFCs, but large nationalized banks, private banks,
Oh,
and so we do keep giving information to them as a way not only to create awareness about our services,
yes.
but also to sort of sensitize them
Yes.
to the idea that a public notice that is given
Yes.
does carry important information which, if used properly,
Yes.
can really contribute not only to the I mean, it is not only a cost.
Yes.
Any amount that is saved,
Mm-hmm.
any amount of money that does not go into long-term litigation,
Yes.
is actually adding to the bottom line,
Definitely.
and therefore is creating a market value for that listed entity if it is a listed entity.
Listed. Wow, great. And I think the kind of effort which banking companies and other lending organizations and the money which they are going to spend, especially on dealing with property related matters, that's going to be very, very significant.
True.
So putting a control at much early stage is far, far critical and very relevant. So Pranav, just my last question to you is that if like anyone wants to get in touch with you, talk to you, and understand about the solution which the company is providing, so how they can do that? And second is just maybe you can share a few things about your organization, the website where the information could be
Right.
accessed, and any guidance without, of course, sharing any commercial details, but sharing the process as to how the banks can benefit out of the very, very valuable solution which you have created till now.
Thank you. So, the website should be newsforuse.com.
Yeah, newsforuse.com.
NEWS digit 4
Digit 4, yes.
and USC.com.
Yeah.
And of course, I am quite active on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So, if anybody is a visitor there and needs to get in touch with me,
Yes.
I would be available at a moment's notice.
Yes.
My contact details are also shared on there. So what we have now is we are a small 10-12 people team
Yes.
with an in-house IT function and an operations with an average age of 25,
Wow.
all trained to interpret the notices.
Yes.
Because one of the things that is there is that each lawyer
Yes.
or each entity that gives a notice
Yes.
have their own style of doing it.
Yes. Yes.
And another thing that is very important is the same piece of land or the same property can be referred to by different people using different numbers.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you would have a Aadhaar card that refers to Smitesh.
Yes.
You will have a passport that refers to Smitesh. You have a PAN card that refers to Smitesh.
Yes. Yes. Correct. Yes.
Right?
Mm.
So All of that is considered in that. We take great pains to make sure that we get the newspapers. If there is any that are not been published or not, we try and make sure that it is minimized, that we don't have newspapers
Yes.
of any particular day.
Yeah.
We therefore also track to make sure that if a particular page is not visible, even that gets recorded in the system.
Wow.
So just in case it so happens, which happens rarely but does happen,
Correct.
is that a particular page is not visible,
Yes.
and there is no way for us to get either through an e-paper or some other way to get that information. The client is aware that yes, this is how it is.
Wow.
So that is something that we've done. And yeah, so we have a eclectic mix of people. So we have people with journalism background also, and we have people from sales background. We have people from operations,
Wow, that's a
and a
great
nice
mix.
collection of people.
Right.
And yes, so
Yeah, so friends, here I'm sitting with the risk management expert of the domain, and Pranav has spent almost more than 2 decades into the risk management work, and especially now, very key thing for any person who is taking an exposure on property, be it through lending or through any other mode. I'm sure it's very critical for them to look at what are the current issues and challenges, what are the current risks which are that same particular property is facing, and should they be aware of that, and that is where the solution of Pranav Kapadia's company is providing. So what I'll request now, Pranav, is to just give a final message to our